It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me to talk about soil fumigation. When Gerald sent me the audience list, not names, the list, it's a diverse audience. With some of you might find the presentation very simple, others might find it boring, and some of you might learn something new from what I'm going to present. I'm going to talk about the history of fumigation. Why do we fumigate? Louder. The history of fumigation, the current use, and what is the future, in my opinion, about soil fumigation. Your thing died. Okay. Okay. So, what do we fight with fumigants? Why do we need fumigants? To control soil fungal pathogens, nematode, bacteria in many cases, and weeds. So in general, these are the list that we started with. The one in red were added recently because when I started doing research on soil fumigation, we did not have problems with macrofumina or fusarium, and I'll explain why later on. But soil-borne fungal disease, nematodes, insects, and weeds. Weeds are either the last year crop, could be weeds, or the volunteer weeds, which are the volunteer weeds. How do we fight with fumigant? How do we fight soil-borne disease and problems in our fields, in strawberry fields or other fields? Soil fumigation is what I will be talking about. There are other ways to fight disease. For example, plant breeding for disease-resistant crops, grafting, use more of post-plant pesticides, biocontrols. We can use anaerobic soil disinfestation system. Hopefully you heard of that. We can use soil solarization if it's an area where it's warm and hot and sunny. We can use steam disinfestation. I believe Dr. Steve Wilhelm, my colleague, presented some of that a few weeks ago. Or we can develop what we call suppressive soils, soils that will not allow pathogens to survive in that soil. Let's go back into a little bit history, because understanding the history will tell us the importance of soil fumigation. California's strawberry industry started in the 1880s, before I was born. The historic yields were around 1 ton per acre, and after 1 year or 2 years, the fields became worn out, not productive, and growers had to move inland or other areas to produce strawberries. In the 20s, especially in California, they encountered heavy losses in the strawberry yields due to high disease pressure, mainly caused by Verticillium dahlia. Verticillium is a fungal pathogen that infests the roots and destroys the plant, collapses the plant. Growers started understanding that selecting the proper land or the previous crop is important, because some crops, even if you're doing rotation, some crops will be a host for Verticillium, so you don't need to go to these lands to cultivate them. And even in the 50s and 60s, strawberry yields were 5 to 6 tons per acre. And when growers at that time started seeing some weak production, they did not know that what's happening or the real reason. They started adding more and more of fertilizer, thinking that it is a nutrient problem, which was not, and I'll show the reason and why. So they increased the rates of fertilizers to account for the loss in yield. This picture is from an old book showing the problems with the strawberry collapse in California soils, where Verticillium dali really destroyed fields like that. The problem was not lack of nutrients. The problem was pathogens, not controlling pathogens in these fields. Pathogens suppressed root growth and or destroyed plants, and that's why they were having lower yields. At that time, growers started doing 2-year production, not 1 year, 2 years. 1 year is to produce the strawberry as a plant, have it develop roots, have it established, keep it trimmed, and let it go to the next year where they'll let the fruits come out from a healthy plant, and this way they were able to produce strawberry. So they would use the land for 2 years. Many people don't know this, but strawberry is a perennial crop. We treat it as an annual crop, but it is a perennial crop, so it can stay in the land for a longer time. In the 20s, there were some problems with tomato and in England, and scientists there, they tried to use chloropicrin, that's one of the fumigants that I will talk about, to treat some of the disease that infested tomato. And they were successful by applying, when they applied chloropicrin to cure tomato soil sickness, they call it, and bring tomato production into high production by using chloropicrin. That's in the 20s. In the 27, the Hawaii's pineapple industry was collapsing due to disease. The US Army volunteered to give some of their chloropicrin to help disinfest the soils in Hawaii and save the pineapple industry. And that did the trick. Chloropicrin saved the pineapple industry in the 20s. 40s and 50s, or late 40s, 50s, California acreage plummeted due to disease pressure in the field, fungal pathogens mainly. At the same time, methyl bromide was experimented with as a weed control agent for some broom rape grass that was a common weed in California. However, they had to use 800 pounds per acre of methyl bromide to treat that crop. In the 50s, Dr. Steve Wilhelm, UC Berkeley professor, decided to test chloropicrin for verticillium issues that California was facing, the California strawberry was facing. And he was successful to show that chloropicrin can suppress pathogens, fungal pathogens, especially verticillium, and brought back the production of strawberry in California to higher level. This is from his book, Dr. Steve Wilhelm. That is unfumigated, the left side, the right side is fumigated with chloropicrin. That's strawberry plant growing in fields, unfumigated or not fumigated, unfumigated. And that was in the 50s. For that, when they did their research, they put chloropicrin in canisters like this with a spike on it, and they would step on it, and it will pump a dose of chloropicrin. That was the application method for them. So To do 1 acre, you will spend 1 day going step by step, pumping gas into the soil to fumigate it. When I looked into historical books to prepare for this presentation, I found this picture where in the 1800s in Europe, they used the very same device to inject carbon disulfide to treat the soil infested with root-feeding insects. So that little device as an application method existed way before we used it in the US in the 20s. Between around the mid-50s, they started experimenting with mixes, chloropicrin plus methyl bromide, and they found certain ratios to work well to control pathogens. So methyl bromide, instead of using it at 800 pounds per acre, they found out they can use only 300 pounds per acre if they mix 100 pounds per acre of chloropicrin with it. The synergy of the two chemicals helped in reducing rates of fumigants. And these 3 people in the picture, plus Dr. Steve Wilhelm when he was young and professor at UC Berkeley, worked out the first fumigation system in the US. And these 3 people are what we call now TriCal, the 3 people who started the fumigation. They are the founders of TriCal, and Steve Wilhelm with them. And they started doing commercial applications with mixtures of methyl bromide and chloropicrin. And the yield increased from, at best, 5 tons per acre to over 30 tons per acre. That's what makes strawberry industry or strawberry production high, is to clean up the soil before planting strawberries. So basically, not nutrients, not fertilizers that improve the soil health, it was fumigation, suppressing the pathogens that will feed on our crops. This is a background slide. What are the benefits of soil fumigation in general? You control the pests, maintain healthy roots, and better plant growth. Also, when you do soil fumigation, you change a little bit in nutrient status of the soil. You lyse microbial cells. You basically decompose and lyse and release the amino acids in them that ends up to be nitrogen in the soil. And it turned out that fumigants have really low impact on beneficial soil microorganisms. Fumigation does not sterilize the soil. Fumigation suppresses target pathogens. Chloropicrin is a good fungicide. It suppresses fungal pathogens. Methyl bromide is a good herbicide and broad spectrum fumigant that suppresses several pathogens and weeds in the soil. And to start talking about what are the fumigants, first let's understand what makes good pre-plant soil fumigants. It has to be selective. If we have fungal pathogens, we have to use selective fumigant that will target fungal pathogens, not bacteria, viruses, and other things. It should be mobile in the soil, diffuse and distribute in the soil quickly to cover the target area or the root zone where the plant will live. It has to be basically a gas in a way, or physically we move it there. Should not bind to the soil, should degrade quickly, disappears from the soil quickly and from the air quickly. These are the target items that we want in every fumigant. However, it's not the case. Methyl bromide was the perfect fumigant because it has high volatility, high vapor pressure, low boiling point, so it's always a gas in the soil moving around, destroying pathogens, and then disappears or dissipates. In the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, they recognized that, or they claim that methyl bromide is one of the chemicals that is contributing to the ozone hole, to the hole in the ozone in the southern atmosphere. So methyl bromide was listed as one of the chemicals that contributes to the ozone depletion. And it was scheduled to be phased out, banned from use, because of the claim it is an ozone depleter. Along with refrigerants, CFCs, a group of chemicals that were banned almost immediately because they were known to deplete the ozone layer or to contribute to the hole in the ozone in the southern hemisphere. So the whole world decided altogether that we should ban methyl bromide use altogether. And in 93 to 98, they froze the production of methyl bromide. 99, they start every other year reduction 25%. And between 2005 and 2016, only use methyl bromide only for critical uses, for certain uses, not for soil fumigation. This is a quick plot showing the use of methyl bromide since the phase out, since 2005 all the way to 2017. And we can see methyl bromide use drop down except for critical use exemptions. Critical use exemptions where you have to have clean crop, but you cannot fumigate with any other chemical except methyl bromide. Example, strawberry nurseries. Strawberry nurseries, by definition, they have to be certified to be pathogen free. And the only chemical that guaranteed that was methyl bromide, is to grow the plants in disease-free or pathogen-free soil. You have to fumigate that soil with methyl bromide. So that the strawberry nurseries were exempt from the phase out, and they continued using methyl bromide. Other uses like mites for exports. I mentioned the strawberry field, strawberry nurseries, USDA quarantines. They have and still use methyl bromide when you bring something through across the border, and they have to be fumigated. They still use methyl bromide. Fruit imports, especially the Chilean grapes, they got exemption because there is nothing else can fumigate them before they come into the country for consumer to buy. And for logs and wood fumigation. So these are the critical uses that allowed us to continue using at very small amount of methyl bromide that is left behind. Now here's the myth that comes out from methyl bromide being an ozone depleter. We all got scared. The hole in the ozone is getting larger and larger. Methyl bromide has to go. Then later on, science started showing that, well, burning by itself produces as much as what we use for fumigation. Methyl bromide from fires are produced by very close amounts to the amount we use for fumigation. Actually, some crops like brassica, canola, methylates bromide from the soil and produces methyl bromide. Many other industries, like the lead fuel combustion, produces a lot of methyl bromide, in addition to fumigation. So these are sources. The largest source of methyl bromide production, 400 million pounds of methyl bromide per year produced from phytoplanktons in the ocean. So it's way multiple folds than what we used. So are they all guilty of contributing to the ozone hole or the hole in the ozone? If we put this in numbers, ag industry, we have a number for them, 97. All other numbers, total is negative. Why? Because the oceans are the sink for methyl bromide. Even though they're produced a lot, the marine phytoplanktons produce a lot of them, the water, the ocean, is a sink for it. So actually you get negative number as contribution. So methyl bromide, the budget of methyl bromide is actually negative, but yet we classified it as an ozone depleter and took one of the most important tools that our ag needs away from our growers. And we're looking into alternatives that are not good as methyl bromide and as not forgiving as methyl bromide. I pulled out this graph just recently. It starts with 1979. I don't know if you see the years. The first, this is when the blue zone is the hole in the ozone. In 1979, the first one, it was barely there. Then it increased and stayed almost constant until 2019. That's years after banning methyl bromide. And the world rejoiced. Oh, that was methyl bromide. 21, 22, and 23 are worse than ever. We did not use methyl bromide. So it is something else. There is something globally happening that is affecting our climate, which is affecting also what we are sending from the atmosphere to the stratosphere, that is contributing to the hole in the ozone, to the depletion of the ozone. So now we regret it, but we cannot go back. It's clear that methyl bromide maybe was in part involved, maybe not, but that did not solve the issue of the ozone depletion. They say if we don't use any VOCs or any fumigants or any pesticides or anything that contributes to or reacts with the ozone layer, that the ozone layer will heal, that's without using anything, by 2040. I think we have to change a lot of things about the environment, including how much we burn in our cars, to start there at least. There are other things we can do to help heal the ozone layer, but it's not by banning certain pesticides, really. So what is the current and the future of soil fumigation? I will go quickly through this. Currently, soil fumigants are applied, injected under the soil, under the ground, 6, sometimes about 12 to 18 inches deep, using plows like this that swim underground. and then covered with plastic. So tractors like this you see, maybe you're aware of or you've seen in fields, injecting methyl soil fumigants underneath the ground, and most of the time sealing them with plastic tarp. They can do it also by the bed. After making the bed, you can have tractors made to inject the chemicals in the bed and simultaneously cover the bed with plastic to prevent escapes. And the last one is the drip fumigation that was developed by the young scientists in the 90s and 2000, and it's being used now at almost half of the strawberry fields in California. Drip fumigation is injecting the fumigant with emulsifier into the irrigation line while the water is going or irrigating the field before planting the crop. Then you let it sit there, diffuse out of the water, sterilize the soil or disinfest the soil. Then they go punch holes and plant strawberries 3 to 4 weeks later. Methyl bromide is gone. That's our fumigant. That's our star fumigants that we had. It's no longer available, phased out. I will not talk much about it anymore. We worked on finding alternatives. We found methyl iodide. It's not an ozone depleter. Methyl iodine does not react with the ozone. We did all of the research. We showed yield data, efficacy data, spent about 10 years working on methyl iodide. It got registration by US EPA, got registered by California, lasted 1 year, then the registrant decided to withdraw the registration or cancel the registration from California and the US because they found out that the profit they're going to make will go into litigation in court because people are suing anything called fumigants, toxic chemicals. So they got sick and tired of fighting in courts with every fumigation, so they ended up withdrawing the registration or canceling it. So these two are not used. What's used? Chloropicrin was used commercially in 1941. It's the best fungal pathogen controller we ever used. Suppresses all of the soil-borne fungal pathogens. 1,3-dichloropropene, which is a T-lone product. It is the best nematicide we've ever had. The combination of two have been used to suppress a wide range of fungal pathogens and nematodes. Methyl isothiocyanates is generated from metam sodium, metam potassium. It's a general spectrum fumigant that is used to help chloropicrin and T-lone in many cases. We do not use it by itself in strawberry because we found out it does not fully does the job. You need two fumigants in the strawberry industry. Chloropicrin and T-lone are doing the job. These are what's being used in California. New fumigants. Allyl isothiocyanate. It's sister chemical to the methyl isothiocyanate. Methyl isothiocyanate, very similar. This is the allyl, triple bond, double bond. And it was registered as Dominus by US EPA in 2013. It's being used in the 49 states except California because they're taking their leisure time evaluating this fumigant to be used in California where it's needed most. Dimethyl disulfide, Paladin, we did all of the research on it, efficacy data, all kind of data. Got registered in the US. California said, we're not even going to look into it. It stinks. It smells like rotten eggs. That will give us bad reputation for registering it. That's California EPA. And towards the end, the registrant withdrew the registration from the US because of other issues. So these are new, but they're almost not used in California. Experimental fumigants. We studied so many different fumigants: furfural, probazone, plant bro, which is potassium iodide, 2-bromoethanol, which I hold a patent on that with other colleagues, propargyl bromide, sodium azide, propylene oxide. We tested all of these. They work at some level, certain. They control some of the pathogens, but not like chloropicrin and methyl bromide. Nothing is close so far. The newest fumigant, and this is the irony of fumigation and the politics and the PR. It's called cyanogen. Cyanogen, we worked with scientists from Australia, and we developed the data to get it registered in Australia for soil fumigation to replace methyl bromide and the alternatives. It's a fantastic product, very high vapor pressure, low boiling point. It's a true gas. It's even more gas than methyl bromide. To give you an idea what it is, I'm not going to talk much about it. The vapor pressure is 5.16 bar. That's 75 psi. The pressure in your tire in the car is 30 psi. This one exerts more pressure, twice the pressure of the pressure in your tires. That means the moment it leaves the cylinder in the soil, it spreads all over. That's perfect fumigant. That's very good fumigant. I requested an RA from the DPR to do some research on it. They took 2 years to even consider giving me an RA for a pesticide that is already registered in Australia, because there are some politicians and some DPR people agenda that they don't want to allow for new fumigants in California. They want all fumigants to be banned. That's the war that you will be facing in the future, is to keep these tools available for our growers. So anyway, this fumigant is registered and being used in Australia. The US is considering it, but California, based on the name, it's cyanide compound. Well, it's in the soil. It decomposes into carbon dioxide and into ammonia, nitrogen. So it's a nutritional fumigant, but they're just worried about fumigants. This is for you if you want to see the properties of other fumigants. I just want to point out the vapor pressure. Methyl bromide had 1400 millimeter mercury. That is equivalent to about 2 bar, or much less than cyanogen. But the others, they have very low vapor pressure. It's like water. So you have to physically move them and put them in the target area. When we started our research, we started working on Verticillium dahlia wilt, the same problem that the old-timers had. And many fields started getting verticillium disease like the old days, like the 20s, 30s, when we stopped using methyl bromide. So we started looking for alternatives. We found chloropicrin, T-lone, combination of both worked well, along with metam sodium. These three are working fine, or worked fine. However, a few years later, and that's where Gerald and the center started, a few years later, the Strawberry Commission started recognizing that it's not only Verticillium dahlia fungal pathogens. We have emerging pathogens coming in. Macrophamina and Fusarium are no longer controlled by the alternative fumigants to methyl bromide, by the new fumigants. Methyl bromide was able to control Macrophamina and Fusarium because these two pathogens, they reside inside the tissues, inside the roots. And by the end of the season, you mix them up and they stay in the soil and they're still alive. coming with methyl bromide, a true gas, would penetrate as a gas, penetrate into where these fungal pathogens are hiding and destroy them. Now the alternatives, very low vapor pressure, do not volatilize and move like methyl bromide, so they will just touch the surface of the root and that's it. So this new disease became our main problems now, and that's what this center is working on, is trying to find ways to cope with these two major pathogens that are hitting us in California. I'm not going to talk much about this except that California has buffer zone requirement, and with that, some of the field is not fumigated, so the disease is still there and get you the next year. Not only strawberry is needed fumigation. Perennial crops, replant of trees, vines, all of those. They pull out the old orchard. You have to fumigate, clean up the soil to put the new stalks in so as they will survive. Otherwise, the new trees or the young trees will die or get disease, pressure, and die. So not only strawberry, you have so many crops are dependent on soil fumigation. So it's one of the tools that is well needed, and we need to keep the fumigants. Regulators come and say, oh, there are safer alternatives. Okay, let's talk about safer alternatives quickly. Methyl bromide, we have 180,000 acres in California annually fumigated. 180,000. Let's talk about the alternatives. Solarization, yeah, it works, but it takes a long time, and it's does not really do the job beyond the first 10 inches in the soil. Steam is 2 acres a day. Imagine you have 180,000 acres. How many machines and how much gas you have to waste if you are doing with this machine doing 2 acres a day, whereas a tractor like this can do 50 acres a day. So steam is good technology, well-established technology, but it is slow. This car, or 10 of them, or 100 of them, will be running almost all year round, burning fuel, VOCs, just to produce what one tractor can do with fumigants. And biofumigants, crop rotation with brassica and other things, it works every other year. It's not a secure technology. I put here a picture about steam. This tractor is going so slow, it's barely moving, and the amount of energy goes to heat the water to create the steam, which half of it goes up in the air. Extremely expensive and wasteful. It's good for small areas, yeah. Buffer zones where we cannot use fumigants, you can use steam, but we have to have the fumigants. Football field like this with traditional fumigants, half an hour. With steam, it will take 2 days of a machine burning gas to fumigate or fuel to fumigate a football field like this. Chloropicrin, how am I doing on time, Gerald?
I'd say you got 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Well, these are some of the advantages, disadvantages of fumigants. If you are interested, Gerald will post the presentation on the website. You can take a look at them. Chloropicrin. The issue with chloropicrin is not anything. It's not an ozone depleter. It's an excellent fungicide. Now the rumor is going around the California EPA that it's causing cancer. It's not. It's a warning agent. You run away from it, at a threshold point at 2 parts per billion, you tear and run away before it causes any damage to anything. 2 parts per billion, you feel chloropicrin, and you run away. You know how little 2 parts per billion? 1 part per billion is almost 1 step around the equator of the Earth. That's the relative. It's part per nothing. You feel it in your eyes, you run away. So many other people claim that it's, especially politicians and non-scientists, they claim that, or poor scientists in many cases, that claim it causes cancer, but the whole world, US EPA scientists, everybody else say, no, it's not a cancer-causing compound, but California is trying to get rid of fumigants. That's their agenda. And I'm on video. I'm glad that I said that. Buffer zone is always going to be an issue. They claim that we are wasting fumigants, injecting into the soil, it emits and gets into the neighborhoods. We developed a new TARP called TIF, totally impermeable film, or TARP. It reduced emission, the release, the escape of fumigants from the fields by 98%. Nothing escapes virtually. We first started with virtually impermeable film, went after that to totally impermeable film. Everything is staying there, so we get to use much less amounts now to maintain CT value, and everything is doing well. These are some pictures just to show you the other fumigants. 1,3-D is a nematicide, but it's well needed for perennial crops and as a mix with strawberry, with the chloropicrin for strawberry. They again went after it as being a cancer-causing, and they're accusing T-lone of causing cancer. US EPA came out and said no, it is, they downgraded it from likely to be carcinogenic to suggestive evidence. That means people without really knowledge or background suggest it is a cancer causing. But yet California is trying to get rid of it as well. Dominus, it's registered, but not in California. It's a good companion for chloropicrin. We did research on it. It doesn't work well by itself. Gerald did research on it. It works really well in combination with chloropicrin. So everything needs chloropicrin. Dimethyl disulfide came in and out. I'm not going to talk about it much, but it was withdrawn. Future of strawberry fields under severe disease pressure. That's the future. If we lose fumigants, these are our strawberry fields. People say, so what? We'll import from Mexico. Well, Mexico used nasty pesticides. They're allowed to spray anything. They can fumigate. Why are we sending our business somewhere else? Actually, Driscoll moved a lot of their operations to production to Mexico because of regulations on fumigants and pesticides, whereas they can use anything they want and then bring them back for us to consume them. We cannot lose fumigants. Fumigants are tools that are well needed for strawberry production. The problem is, and that is what you hear always, the problem is strawberry for the last 40 years, since we started using methyl bromide, strawberry breeding was focusing on fruit quality for transport, shipment, for the market to look beautiful and healthy, and not on finding disease-resistant varieties. That is the main problem we have with the strawberry industry. We overlooked that. The old-timers thought methyl bromide will be there forever. They focused on developing varieties that taste better, look nicer in the market, and can ship better. not on disease-resistant varieties. This center is actually doing some good work on looking into disease-resistant strawberry varieties. And if you think, well, we can live without strawberry, okay. It's over $4 billion industry in California. I don't know, that's the number I had when I retired 10 years ago. $3 billion industry. That's a budget of a whole country somewhere else. That's how much money we make, and we get strawberry at $5 a basket, where I was in France, I paid almost $25 for dinky, stinky, worthless strawberries. So this will be your strawberry fields in the futures without fumigants. And sadly, to report that that might be the case. You have to have crop rotation every 5 years, come back to the land. You have to have 5 acres and only produce 1 acre a year at a time. We cannot afford that. Not only strawberry, melons. These will be the melon fields. Just name all other crops, tomato, pepper, all other crops. So there are many factors affect how fumigants work. I'll let you read this one at your leisure, but that's all what I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Husein. What questions do you have for Dr. Ajwa?
One of our speakers last week, he mentioned that Europe is moving a lot of their production to like above ground tables, using like substrates instead of like traditional soil from the ground.
Yeah.
Do you think that might be a way to go in the future in America, or do you think
It's
just genetics, what you're saying?
well, very expensive. Our growers are not that fancy and rich growers. Okay, they take loans. They mortgage their house to take a loan to produce strawberry. This becomes industrial strawberry. It's in Europe, in the Middle East, in the Jordan Valley. Everything is by like a machine gun, go rotate around. The cost of production is extremely high, and the cost to the consumer is extremely high. And the taste is not the same, believe me, it's watered down.
Other questions? I'll pose one. You mentioned that Chilean grapes are fumigated. Why are they fumigated?
Because before they come in, because of basically insects, if they come in.
Insect pests.
Yeah.
So we're trying to prevent insect pests from
Yeah.
Chile to come into the United States. And that's what many of the fumigants were used for, right? For quarantine purposes.
And until now, there is no alternatives. They are forced to use methyl bromide for certain uses. We are still forced to use it.
You mentioned disease-suppressive soils as one of the alternatives in the beginning. Do you think that creating a disease-suppressive soil microbiome can be used like in conjunction with steam or another method, or do you think those will kind of always be at odds with each other?
Excellent. Visiting scientist with me from Israel. I hosted Israeli. I'm a Palestinian, and I hosted Israeli scientists, so we like peace. Shakar Dotan. I can send you the paper to. She did work with me on that, on identifying suppressive soil and working with it. It takes a long time to create a suppressive soil, and one mishap treatment. You have to create certain environment, and then you're required to, when you produce strawberries, you're required to put certain fertilizers, lime, gypsum. That destroys that condition again. So it's fragile, but that is an excellent way to go, is to produce suppressive soil that will prevent pathogens from thriving in that soil. Basically, it will suppress pathogens, certain pathogens. But the emerging pathogens, you suppress some, Verticillium dahlia, we did that. Then we got Macrophamina and Fusarium. growing on or infecting the roots. So it's very targeted, target specific. But it is very good to look into it. Not much has been done. The postdoc who worked on it with me 12 years ago was enthusiastic about it, and she went back. I hope she continued working on it. But that's a very good idea to approach. Nobody has worked on it yet because it's hard to achieve, and I believe you can do it. Yeah.
So you mentioned that the fumigant cyanogen decomposes into CO2 and ammonia, and I was wondering if fumigants like methyl bromide and chlorpyrifos decompose into different substances, or do they just remain in that form for a long time?
Methyl bromide actually is food for the methane consuming bacteria. So it will be consumed and you end up with bromide ion in the soil. That will be like chloride in the soil. Will be there as inorganic form. Chloropicrin decomposes almost within 1 week into CO2 and nitrate. These are the end products. So we used to call chloropicrin we used to call him the nutritional fumigant, because you're adding a budget of about 50 pounds an acre of nitrate net effect to the soil. Eden, almost 1-to-1 ratio. This Australian fumigant, cyanogen, ethane dinitrile, about half of it by weight will end up to be nitrate. So you don't apply nitrogen at all to that field. So yes, they decompose quickly, and all of the products are benign. The only product that was slightly dangerous was methyl iodide, where it might get into the groundwater and get iodine in groundwater, but that's it. Yes.
So from broadcast fumigation, move to the fumigation, revolutionize the industry because it cut down the cost almost in half, right? But we have issues of being shorter, shoulders not getting fumigated enough that the diseases could show up early on the shoulders. Have you investigated how to deal with that with the fumigation?
Broadcast flat fumigation, where the tractor goes and covers the whole land back and forth, fumigates every inch of that field. Bed fumigation, you make the beds and you just fumigate the bed where you're going to put the plants. The furrows are not fumigated. These are hosts. So with bed fumigation, drip or shank bed fumigation, you have to come back every 3rd year and broadcast fumigate with a fumigant like methyl bromide, chloropicrin, or combination to clear all of the area, because the bed shoulder and the furrows still have the pathogens. And you hope the roots will not go there, and you hope that the pathogens will not jump back in. But yes, bed fumigation is cheaper, but that's the disadvantage. You will not fumigate the entire field. I prefer to have the entire field fumigated, but it's expensive and not available.
The cyanogen product, is there a chance that would be registered in California? Is it worthy of pursuit by the
Yes.
industry?
Yes.
It's effective?
Yes. Cyanogen product, ethane dinitrile, which is registered in Australia. The rates like methyl bromide, you need 500 pounds to 1,000 pounds per acre. It cannot, unlike methyl bromide, it cannot be tank mixed with chloropicrin, so you have to have separate applications. In Australia, most of the fumigation is done around 500 pounds per acre and getting some success, but heavy ground or ground with high organic matter where it absorbs on it, you have to go almost twice the rate, 1,000 pounds per acre. And that is a lot of nitrogen to add even as a fertilizer. But if you apply 500 pounds per acre, then chloropicrin comes in at low dose, you get equivalent control. But for disease like microfamina and fusarium, where you need penetration into the roots where the pathogens reside, that will do the job. Cyanogen will do the job. It is registered by the US EPA now for commodity fumigation. So we can use it to fumigate commodity logs, wood. And they are pursuing soil registration by US EPA as we speak now. However, California, the scientists at the DPR, 10% of the DPR scientists, California EPA, are brilliant. And 90%, what's the opposite of that? Are politicians. That's the definition. They just go with he said, she said. But 10% of them, I hope they will prevail and get us the fumigants we need.
Other questions?